What if hiring could be easier, more streamlined, and less time-consuming, so even when you're busy, you could still be smart about the way you hire? With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with just one click, so you can rest easy knowing your job is being seen by the right candidates. Then, ZipRecruiter puts its smart matching technology to work, actively notifying qualified candidates about your job within minutes of posting so you receive the best possible matches. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other hiring sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on the right candidates finding you, it finds them. And it's no wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. ZipRecruiter, it's the smartest way to hire. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by growing businesses of all sizes and industries to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That is right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/M&M. That's ZipRecruiter.com/M&M. One more time to try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/M&M.
Want an easy way to see if you could save money on car insurance? Geico gives you 3. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. Go online to geico.com or stop by the Geico office nearest you. 3 ways you could save 15% or more.
Here we are on this weird Wednesday with Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance, and our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So much great stuff going on in our world of sports, with the Dodgers on the brink and the Yankees coming from behind and all this NFL stuff and a monster college schedule this weekend. And, of course, basketball back, which is fabulous until 5 minutes into his tenure in a Boston Celtic uniform. Gordon Hayward's foot is facing in the wrong direction. Golick, I said it before and I'll say it again. That was a tough one to watch. Sometimes I ask you for help diagnosing these injuries because you played football. This was one that I don't think anyone who saw it had any question figuring out just how bad this was.
I mean, listen, it's the things that went through my mind when I saw it were, first, obviously, it was a gruesome injury, dislocating the ankle, breaking the tibia, and so in looking at it. But then it immediately goes to having been a part of that and preparing for a season and the work that goes into it. All that work is unseen to be ready for a season, switching to a new team, so much hope for that team. But I'm really talking about the individual to have that happen. And outside of the pain and looking at that and being freaked out by what you see, but you also know at some point, you know, when you're in the pain and realize it, then you understand I'm out. How long am I out? The rehab that's going to be, and 5 minutes in, my season is done. All the work you put in, and it's over. And we see it every year in every sport, whether it happens in OTAs in football or preseason in a sport. Players get hurt. It's the nature of the game. And when you see then one this bad, sometimes obviously different injuries have you out different times. We know Paul George, part of Team USA, broke his tibia. He was out 8 months. This is the tibia and the ankle dislocation, so we have no idea. We keep saying just because it hasn't been announced, we're not sure if he'll be back this year. He's not coming back this year. He's out. He's going to be out the entire year. The question is, how is he going to recover from this, and can he get back to what he was? Modern technology is great now, but I have no idea the extent of this. I do know it's going to be a long road and a lot of rehab, which a lot of guys have to go through. So I felt bad for Gordon Hayward, the person, the athlete, and what he was going to go through. And then, obviously, it expands to the hopes of the Boston Celtics to where, listen, if he can come back as strong as ever, it's just been delayed, the maturation of this whole team and what they're building there.
By a year.
By a year. It's exactly right. If he can come back to be what he was. But, all the things we are looking at this year, does that all now go by the wayside? And it really seems to have done that. Yeah.
I would say yes to that last part. People this morning, when we opened the show with this, of course, were suggesting, he's not. Let's not talk about what he's not.
No.
All right, let's talk about what he is. He is a player who, on half the teams in the NBA, would be the best player on the team. We just live in such a strange time in the NBA that he isn't anywhere near the best player on his own team. Mm-hmm. But he was a free agent who basically every team in the sport would have signed to a max contract. So he's that. And I'll say this, I don't think anybody's beating Golden State this year if Golden State remains intact. but they were a list of probably 7 teams you would have said you could realistically see winning the championship this year, and Boston was one of them, and now they're not. So that's about as significant an injury as you could possibly have.
Just sit there and say, well, can they still be second or third or whatever? It doesn't matter. So what? I mean, they can still make the playoffs, yeah. You see how, the Jason Tatums and Jaylen Brown, who was the leading scorer last night, come along, and start to develop. So they'll make the playoffs, but they're not what they were. And they're not in the position to be one of those teams now to have that their odds went from 10-1 to win the title to 20-1, and with good reason. I mean, when you lose a player like that.
It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Our Brian Windhorst was in the building last night. Here's how he described the scene.
This is as an emotional night as you'll ever see at an October game in the NBA. Opening night, Kyrie Irving coming back to the Cavs, and then just a few minutes into the game, a horrific injury that rattled every single fan and every single player on this court tonight. Gordon Hayward, after suffering the dislocated ankle and fractured tibia, was taken back into the Cavs locker room. The ankle was reset by Cavs doctors, which is very important, I have been told by sources, in getting the process started in his recovery.
I said a lot in the locker room that a guy can have an issue off the court, in a bar, in a car, with whatever, and there'll be players that will be going, man, that's horrible, but it's not going to happen to me. This is different. Every one of those players obviously were feeling bad for Gordon Hayward without question as he was laying there, in pain and looking at the injury, you could tell. But then every one of them will think, it could be me. That is a reality slap in the face of one wrong jump, one wrong land, one wrong play, one split second. That's how it is. And it's done. It's done to months and months and months of intense rehab just to get back on the court or the field to play again. That quickly it can happen, and that's a real realization to players when they see it right in front of them.
It's a brutal start to the season. There's no other way to say it. It's brutal. And it's great to have the league back, and they are set up to have a terrific year, but Boston was going to be one of the most interesting and exciting teams. So you feel terrible for him. The Twitter reaction from across the spectrum of sports yesterday was great. I thought the Utah Jazz Twitter account there, they tweeted a really classy tweet at Gordon and his wife, Robin, and so it's just a brutal. There's really nothing else you can say.
Nothing else you can say.
It's just a brutal, horrible injury for him and for the Celtics, and in its own way for the league in total. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. All right, jumping around to our next line of business here on what is an extraordinarily busy juncture in our world of sports. There was a point last night, right around the same time this injury took place, that in my mind the Yankee season was over.
I think for those, because I was going back and forth between the two games, and the Yankees game was a critical part of that game going on, so there were a lot of people that found out about the Hayward injury on Twitter because they were watching the Yankees game before they hit previous channel and went back to the basketball game.
4-0 Astros. It looked like they were about to take a seemingly insurmountable lead with Keuchel and Verlander coming up next. And then all of a sudden, something crazy happened. And to find out what, let's bring in our Chris Singleton, who's doing a terrific job doing these games for us on ESPN Radio. Chris, Mike and Mike here. Good morning. Thanks for doing this. How are you?
Hey, good morning, guys. Great to be on with you.
It's our pleasure. So let's go there. You've been in these dugouts. You've been in clubhouses. You understand the dynamic of this thing from 4-0 Astros last night to where it wound up. How did it happen, and why did it happen?
Well, it didn't seem like it was going to happen. I mean, last night's pitching matchup, on paper and based on the history, you didn't expect McCullers and Gray to duel it out the way that they did. I mean, the expectation was, man, if either of these guys or both can get into the fourth inning, they will have had a good start. But man, putting up donuts on the board, inning for inning, and then the Astros breaking out, getting those 3 runs, as hard as it was, for a run to be scored, when they scored those 3, you figured, all right, it's over. And it looked like there were some fans that were kind of making their ways to the concourse to perhaps kind of go and figure, all right, it's just not going to happen tonight. But, man, you just look at this Yankee team who hasn't lost a home game, this postseason, and that Aaron Judge home run that he hit in the 7th, you're thinking, okay, leadoff home run usually doesn't start a rally, but all of a sudden it did, and the dominoes fell. They scored another run, and that place came alive, and I really feel like the Astros players, you got your headset on when you're out there, and I slide one of my ear, pieces up so that I can really hear the crowd. And man, I don't know that this new Yankee Stadium has ever been as loud as it was last night.
We saw Judge have the incredible first half. We saw him go, 36, 37 games straight, striking out at least once in a game. We saw him in the first 28 bats in the postseason strike out, 16, 18 times?
Ridiculous.
Right,
numbers,
a ridiculous amount of times. What are you seeing different now? Home run last game, home run double this game. Are you seeing anything different in his at-bats now?
Yeah, I think, he's allowing the ball to travel a little bit more. We saw the home run 2 nights ago, and a fastball they tried to get up, they tried to get in. He did a nice job. It wasn't a bad pitch, but he was able to pull his hands inside enough, and he's just so strong that, he can miss the barrel of the bat and still throw it out. So, his 2 home runs in the postseason really weren't, Aaron Judge mammoth shots that we had seen. In fact, Boog and I, who were talking during the game, I said, he's got a home run, that game before on Monday night, but you're saying he hasn't really hit, an Aaron Judge type of home run. And then when he came up in the 7th and he teed off on McCullers, it's like, okay, this guy's back. And it was almost like it fueled the rest. Gary Sanchez as well, I thought on Monday night, he's having better at bats. He was still 0-for, but he didn't strike out, had some pretty good contact, and you felt like, okay, he's getting closer to clicking. And really, if this Yankees offense is going to go, those 2 guys have to be right in the middle of it. And indeed, they were last night.
So many people outside of the game watch Judge and just go, oh, my God. I mean, look at the size of this guy and what he can do. How about as a player? I know as a former player, and I'm wondering you as a former player, when you watch athletes play today, you kind of used to seeing a lot of things, but every now and then you get people that because of their speed, their size or something, you're just like, wow. Even as a former player, it wows you. Does Judge do that for you because of just how big he is and what he can do?
Yeah, and Mike, yesterday in our pregame meetings talking with Joe Girardi, because we've seen Aaron Judge, we've seen him rob, home runs. We saw him go crashing into the wall the other night. He's got a great arm. I've noticed this season, his footwork in fielding a, base hit to the outfield. He gets into great position and a great position to throw. So I asked Joe Girardi yesterday, I said, was there, ever a time, because he's so big, 6'7", big guy, obviously all the attention's on his offense and his home runs, but he's great defensively. But is he a guy that you had to take out in the backfields in spring training and really get a lot of work? Because a lot of times big guys like that, they're just not coordinated. They're kind of a liability defensively. And Joe said, he's never really had to get any more extra work than the average guy. So, that was impressive to me because I've just never really seen, a physical specimen like this guy, have both sides of the game so much intact. And, he sees himself as a complete player. You ask him, he's such a special kid. It's unbelievable. It's so unselfish. Talking to him a couple nights ago and said, hey, what do you need to do? What do you need to get going, tonight? And he's like, man, it's really not about me. I just want everybody to play well on my team. It's like you struck out, all these, so many times, and you would think a player, especially in New York, you're feeling the heat and the pressure, and you're like, man, I just need to barrel something up tonight. I need to get something going. But he never uses the word I. It's always us, we, and the team, and Yankee fans are going to be in love with this guy for a long time.
Mike and Mike, Chris Singleton with us. The road to the World Series goes through us on ESPN Radio. Every pitch presented by AutoZone on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. All of that said, now back comes Dallas Keuchel, who has just flat out owned the Yankees historically, including Game 1 of this series. So what is your expectation for this? Clearly the Yankees have to get into that Astro bullpen. How do they do it?
Yeah, they're going to have to really grind out at bats and, be more patient with Dallas Keuchel, hope that he's not, dotting and spotting. But after last night, it's apparent that you want to get in the bullpen. For the most part, you get in these postseasons, and, you're not trying to get in the bullpen. Last year, no one wanted to get into the Indians' bullpen. They wanted, to get their runs off the starters. And we've seen that trend over the last, several years. But coming in on paper, Astros with the 10th, bullpen in the American League in terms of ERA, you knew that on paper, all right, there's a bit of an issue. They didn't make the moves, at the trade deadline to bolster that bullpen. They barely got Justin Verlander. And now it was on display last night to see, hey, there's some real issues there, especially on the road. So you got to grind out some at-bats, try to get that pitch count up for Dallas Keuchel and get some gap innings. Most times you look at, okay, how do we get the ball to Ken Giles if you're the Astros? But even last night, you saw Ken Giles in this environment, wasn't real steady. So a lot of confidence I think the Yankees have in the fact that if they can just get Keuchel out of the game, they've got a good chance. And they're feeling, really good about how Masahiro Tanaka has been throwing the ball. It's been outstanding. He did it on the road in Houston, so he's back at home where his splits, are pretty strong, his ERA. So I think there's a lot of confidence. And yesterday, going in the Astros, clubhouse, talking with A.J. Hinch and the guys, all right, they had lost a game. Time to get a little more serious, but A.J.'s great. He's laid back. But I can imagine today there's going to be a very sober sort of tone in the clubhouse when we go because it's real now. And they know, hey, if we don't get this one tonight, it's going to be tough to go back to Houston and get it done.
So let's look at the National League from both sides. First, the Cubs side down 3-zip in this one. Certainly a long shot to come back. How would we, if they get knocked out of this thing, whether it's a sweep or they get one game, how do you assess their season after winning the World Series? There's no more up you can go than that. How do you break down their season once we all believe they'll be ousted from this?
Yeah, guys, for me, I think the Cubs, in some ways, they overachieved this year because, it was a rocky road, to get to the postseason. The Milwaukee Brewers, played really well, gave the Cubs a pretty good run up into the end. We always, throughout the year, you still felt like the Cubs had, more talent, more experience, but things just weren't clicking, and that happens a lot of times after a team wins a World Series. So, I think with some of the subtractions, whether it's David Ross or Dexter Fowler, some of the guys they've missed, some of that leadership, and then just a little bit of the hangover, for them to go this far into the postseason, I think that's something that, you kind of applaud because, after winning the division, my thought is that they'll get bounced in the division series, especially with, the opponent they're dealing with, who was expected to go all the way, in the Washington Nationals. So, I think that especially Joe Madden, he's going to be very proud of this team, and he's going to spend it in a very positive way. And I think the Cubs, and I'm sure Greeny could speak to this, you got your World Series last year, so you're all right for a little while. You're out for a few years.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, obviously you'll ride the high of that for a long time, but they're not done yet. They'll feel like they can still try and win a game here, and then you never know what may happen.
This is over. It's over. We're talking about
them.
It's over.
In 2004, were we sitting here? I remember 2004 when the Yankees beat the Red Sox like 72-0 in Game 3 of that series, and it was as over as it could be. And I was making fun of everybody around me who was a Red Sox fan. And then 6 days later,
can we not waste Chris's time? It's over. It's over. Let's talk about the Dodgers and how good they can be in trying to win the World Series.
Chris, how good are the Dodgers as they try and win the World Series?
Man, the Dodgers, they're really good because they are a really good team. When you look at what Chris Taylor's done this year, Corey Seager's not even in this championship series. And when that was announced that he's not on the roster, he's injured, everything kind of, just the music stopped, and you're saying, uh-oh, how are they going to get there? So you get Charlie Culberson, you plug him in, what Yasiel Puig's been doing, Cody Bellinger. You go back to April, and this is not like the roster or perhaps the production that you were expecting to get, from certain players. And I think a big thing, that addition of Yu Darvish, there was always a question of, okay, Yu Darvish, could he really pitch in the big games? Could he come through in the big games? Because you really hadn't seen him dominate based on, what he'd been able to do during the regular season with the Rangers. And, man, he's stepped up. He's embraced L.A., and, yeah, this is a team. And when we talk about bullpens and we're talking about the Astros and a hole that they have there, that doesn't exist with the Dodgers. They have the ability to shorten the game, and that's what's pretty scary. So, this team, without question, they are built, and they're built to win it all.
And it's not over. The only thing I'll tell you both is that it is not over. We'll see what happens. Again, all the action of both games as both series resume today is on ESPN Radio. Chris, thank you so much. Enjoy the day. We'll check in with you again soon. Thanks very much.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks.
So, you know what?
Listen,
it's funny.
I get it. As a player, you certainly don't think it's over. I understand.
I literally was about to say, was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Oh, boy.
And then I wonder, is that now a reference you can no longer make?
Man.
Like, I'm
That's
looking over at Bickler.
Point.
Does Bickler, do you know what I mean when I say that? Are you going to say to me, Greeny, it wasn't the Germans who bombed Pearl Harbor? Which were you about to say?
It's been made, and Twitter blows up at the people that say it, and I don't want to deal with all these tweets right now.
Okay. So he's the one whose job it is to follow our Twitter.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying, if I say it, we're going to get thousands of tweets of people saying, "Greeny, you idiot."
We don't care if you're if
this is going to ruin your morning.
If you're
that's really of no consequence
Bickler,
to us.
we don't care. Okay, so
Hembo, do you know what I mean when I say that?
Is this an Animal House reference?
Okay, yes, thank you. I mean, the fact that you said that with a question mark at the end of it kind of bothers me.
And breathing a sigh of relief knowing he's right. But you're right. I mean, that is just a given to us.
Bickler, did you not know that? You did know it, okay, because they're saying Travis didn't know. So
it's just like when you play the It's Alive.
Yeah.
I mean, It's Alive.
People don't know what that is. I'll tell you what.
Side.
Tomorrow morning, after the Cubs win today, we play It's Alive. And then after the Cubs win again, we play It's Alive. And they'll keep winning and they'll keep going. And this thing is not over. It wasn't over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. And it isn't over now.
By the way,
Pearl
Harbor?
What's that?
Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Forget it. He's rolling. Nicely set up. Okay. By the way, if you're looking for the key to that series and why it's not going the Cubs' way, these two teams met in last year's NLCS as well. Last year in the NLCS between the Cubs and the Dodgers, Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo combined for 8 RBIs and 7 extra base hits. And if memory serves, did that series go 5 games? Am I getting that right? Was it 5 or 6? 6 games? So in 6 games, those two guys combined for 8 RBIs and 7 extra base hits. This year in this series so far, Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo, 0 RBIs and 0 extra base hits.
Yep, and let's give love to the other side to two guys then, Justin Turner and Chris Taylor. Between the two of them, they're slugging .783, have 3 home runs and 8 RBIs. So they're a duo that's getting it done for the Dodgers.
Or Mike and Mike presented by
this series, and it's going to be over.
No, they're not. It's not over until we decided it.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
I don't really know what to say to these. Like Sherry tweeted at me, did Greeny just say it wasn't over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Time for a history lesson.
Tim says Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. I mean, people.
What can you say? I can't criticize them for not knowing.
No, I know, but
that reference.
You asked the right question. I mean, you used that reference. It's an Animal House reference.
My kids wouldn't know it. My kids would not know that. If I said to Mikey Golick Jr., if he was sitting here, which he regularly does, and I looked at him and I said, hey, was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Would he laugh or would he look at me and be like, Greeny,
that's one because I remember I brought up with him one time about older movies if they've lost their kind of cachet to, this crowd. Mike, I believe, I think the kids have seen Animal House. I think he would have known that reference. But that is a reference to Animal House, a movie with John Belushi years and years, decades ago. That was a famous quote in the movie that Green. So, and you're right.
It was one of those movies, much like if you were to give sort of a more current or recent comparison, it was a movie, I think, like The Hangover,
yes.
like Bridesmaids, like movies that people reference all the time in just common culture.
Right.
Moments from it, lines from it became a part of the common zeitgeist, and maybe none more so than that line.
That was a line you talked about forever. So Sherry and Tim...
I know that the Germans didn't bomb Pearl Harbor.
We know.
Thank you for helping me.
We do.
I'm not the smartest man alive, but I do know that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to not do what I was planning to do. Tomorrow morning at this time, we'll be talking to Adam Schefter, and I was going to do fill in the blank here, but a series of very interesting tweets were just put up by our Jim Trotter. Mm-hmm. And I think this is important because there have been a lot of conflicting reports that have come out of the owners' meetings yesterday. We had Sal Paolantonio on earlier today, and he shared with us what he knew about what happened inside the meeting.
Right.
But there have been several reports that I've seen from credible people suggesting that they felt that very little got done in the meeting yesterday, that it was not productive. Well, Jim Trotter has a series of tweets that I will read you now in order from a conversation he had with Anquan Boldin, who's one of the players who was in there. Of course, is no longer an active player. Right. But he is a very active player.
Yes, he is. Yes, I mean, he was an excellent player, former players who said to have in that meeting.
Correct. He's a really smart guy. And anyway, so Jim Trotter has a series of tweets I'm going to read you in order that paint a very different picture of the conversations. He tweets, spoke to Anquan Boldin this morning about the players' meeting with a group of NFL owners yesterday. His thoughts. He didn't know what to expect going in, but said he left feeling it was a good, productive meeting. He was surprised at some things he heard in a good way. Owners said social justice is an American issue, not a player or league issue. He said it was difficult to discuss certain topics, but everyone wants to get it to a good place, which took the tension out of the room. He said it was refreshing to hear owners talk about players in a positive way like he had never heard. Some owners said the players were true patriots for standing up for their beliefs, said they were proud of the players. The owners wanted to meet again Tuesday, but Boldin and Malcolm Jenkins have commitments for their Listen and Learn tours, likely to meet in 2 weeks. So that was a series of tweets from Jim Trotter that went up in the last half hour from a conversation. So there is directly from Anquan Boldin on the record, one of the most respected people in pro football, telling you what the feelings he emerged from having been inside the meeting. So I will take that right now before anything else as an indication of what went on.
We also have to understand where this is all coming from. When is the last time you heard Roger Goodell, DeMaurice Smith, NFL, and Union productive? I mean,
it's really hard to remember that there was a time.
It really is. So anytime there is actual decent conversation that isn't, antagonistic back and forth, yelling back and forth, whatever the situation had been, you look as a positive. That can surprise you in and of itself, quite honestly, that, oh my gosh, we're having a normal conversation. And as I said before, and I'll repeat, did I think that the NFL was going to try and mandate in that meeting or talk the players into saying, hey, let's kind of have everybody stand now, let's be done with it and find another way to get your point across? Because one thing I do believe, as I said, I would never kneel or never sit for the national anthem. I would never do it. But and I bring this guy up because I saw him do it. One of the first was Chris Long, who put his arm around a teammate who was kneeling down, supporting his teammate and their right to protest. I could have seen myself doing that. So I think if the league was going to ask the players, don't do that anymore, I think that's when the meeting could have turned a little ugly. It would have been, no, you can't tell us, that we can't do that, even though less and less players are kneeling at this point. So, but still some are. So the talk was, and that tweet is right. It is a social problem. It's not an NFL players and NFL league problem, but it's a social problem that includes the NFL and NFL players because you're part of society, right? For those people that say stick to sports, well, I mean, everybody can be out there giving their opinion on things because it involves everybody. So what are the concrete things that can be done? Because in my opinion, a lot of the initial message when this started way back with Colin Kaepernick has been lost to you're disrespecting the flag. I don't want to hear anything more that you have to say about it until you stop disrespecting the flag. And if you have that opinion, that's fine. I think the bottom line for the players is the point gets muddied a little bit. So what's concrete that can be done? Concrete that can be done is talk of getting involved in the 32 cities where there are teams, the league and the players, getting involved in programs about the issues that the players are discussing. That's where they can help from the game standpoint in society, where it can move forward. And I don't know if there'll ever be a mandate that you have to stand. I think maybe by agreeing to let's do some other things that players, because that's the one thing about the players you would ask is, when are you not going to kneel anymore? When there's a change. Well, what change? Where's that line of change to you that says, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm not going to kneel anymore because I think there was enough positive change? We never really got that answer because I think it's a hard answer to give. For each individual player, it's going to be like if they feel something is going in enough of the right direction to say, I'm going to stand now. But I think that's part of them all working together where players can feel, you know what? We can take care of, can they solve what's going on in the country? No, you probably can't. But can you help in your community where you are most of the time? Can you make a difference? Can you make a change? And can they work together to do that? That's something concrete. And that's about the issue for the reason they knelt in the first place. So if you start to go in that direction, you may see players say, you know what, we're going in the right direction, positive talks. We're going to stand for the national anthem because that part is kind of getting muddied now anyway. So I'm just happy they sat down. I hope they meet again, and I hope it leads to more positive conversations with these groups.
It is important, again, to remember that there are some teams that have made rules about this. Jerry Jones has publicly said that no player who kneels will be allowed to play for his team. And I thought it was also telling that Jerry Jones was not one of the owners who was in that meeting yesterday.
Right.
I don't think that's a coincidence based upon those two. And by now, if you're not aware, about an hour or so ago, an hour and a half ago now, the President Trump did tweet about this. He tweeted, the NFL has decided that it will not force players to stand for the playing of our national anthem. Total disrespect for our great country! ! So that's where we stand with all of that. I thought it was important to get to it here because there have been a lot of different reports coming out of what happened in that room. And I think the tone, I think what happened in that room is important for the league going forward. I mean, they've got a major problem on their hands with this from a variety of different standpoints, and they need to find solutions to those problems. And the fact that Anquan Bolden at least came out of there feeling as positively as Jim Trotter, as he told Jim Trotter, I think is a significant development.
I agree. Did I expect, or should people have expected something concrete, like was there going to be a mandate about the national anthem from the league? I thought there was no way that was going to happen. And did you think there would be some sort of concrete plan for all 32 cities and how they were going to work together coming out of that meeting? No, I didn't. But as long as it's a positive step going forward, which could lead to another meeting, which could lead to some concrete things, to me, it's a step in the right direction.
All right. We will get to fill in the blank coming up in a minute, which is what I had planned for here. And now everyone is tweeting me lines from Animal House, which makes me very happy, including Bo, who tweets, I'm not going to sit here and listen to you badmouth the United States of America. Gentlemen, which is a great moment and a great line in that. I don't know how well the movie holds up. I genuinely don't. I can't remember the last time I watched it. I don't need to watch it to remember literally every line of dialogue from it.
The bar! The whole...
Can't say it.
Can't say it.
Yeah. Expletive deleted.
If you haven't seen it, watch it.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Is awesome.
If you're a person who has not seen it, watch it and then tweet us and let us know. Like, does it hold up or not? Is it funny? Like, I mean, the movie of recent vintage that I would put of the top of all of them, there's a million great newish comedies. I would put The Hangover at the top of my list. I know that's your favorite, and it's probably my favorite as well. I love Zach Galifianakis in that movie. Everything he says makes me laugh.
It's fantastic.
In that movie. It's a great movie. It's kind of like that.
Yep.
My feelings about those two movies are very similar. Now, they were made 35 years apart.
Exactly.
So my question is whether that one holds up in the way that some of the more current movies feel. Okay, let's do Fill in the Blank, which is brought to you by Mahindra Tractors and Utility Vehicles. Mahindra USA, the world's #1 selling tractor. We'll go all around all the world of sports here, and we start with the first Fill in the Blank. Golick, the best two teams in the NFC right now are blank.
Philadelphia and, oh boy, wow. Philadelphia and, you got another one?
It would depend on if you're asking me where I think they're all going to wind up, or if you're just talking about right now. Because if you're just talking about right now, you can't have this conversation without putting the Rams in it. If you told me that the Vikings were going to get consistent quarterback play, I'd be tempted to put them in that conversation.
You know where I'm tempted to go? Carolina. I think they're starting to get it together. Christian McCaffrey in that offense. Cam running a little more of the defense. A lot will be determined by Luke Kuechly's health. He's cleared the concussion protocol, but he's had the issues with it. So if he can stay healthy, I like the direction they're going.
But if you're asking me when it's all said and done, I believe the Seahawks will be one of the last teams standing. So I know they have all kinds of problems on their offensive line, but I believe when all is said and done, they will be among the last teams standing in the NFC. Next, fill in the blank. Of the two options, A, Zeke plays for the Cowboys in November, or B, Zeke plays for the Cowboys in January, the more likely scenario to you is blank.
Wow. I think he's going to end up getting overturned again, so I don't think he's going to be playing in January.
But I don't even know how to answer that question.
I don't either. I'm stunned at this. It got reversed again. He can play, and the hearing will be maybe in 14 days, maybe earlier, because the judge hearing it is on vacation.
I don't mean to punt on the question, but I don't know how to answer it.
I don't either. Do I think eventually he serves a suspension, then it ends up like Tom Brady? Yes, I do.
But it could very well be next year.
When will it be?
And this is another one of those where what we've lost completely in this is what this whole thing is about.
Without
this
question.
is a domestic violence issue, which is something very serious and very significant. And
but it's turned into being about the procedure.
Now that's it. I mean, now it's just about that.
Well, I'm with you. I'm taking a knee or punting, whichever one you want to do on this one. I have no idea.
I don't either. Next, the best one-loss team in college football is blank.
Notre Dame.
You believe they're the best?
Oh, I don't know. I just said that.
But honestly, who do you think is the best?
The best one-loss team. Listen, I still like Clemson. It was
me too.
Ugly,
I was going to say, I think
loss
it's Clemson
for
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that was a bad loss. A lot depends on, the health of their quarterback, Kelly Bryant, who got thrown to the turf and his head bouncing off the turf. So if he's healthy and can go the rest of the way, I would lean toward them, to be the best one-loss.
Me too. Next, the situation with Bobby Portis and Mirotic in Chicago is blank.
Is outside of the injury is more common than anything. Fights go on. Fights happen at practice. Punches get thrown at practice before people can get in there and pull people apart. It happens. This one just turned out to be, where we're hearing a sucker punch. I'm sure we'll hear more, different a bit than the Jet situation with Geno Smith. And I have a horrible time saying that the linebacker who punched him.
Enampoli, Enampoli.
Yeah, who just basically walked up and popped him. That wasn't really a fight. But disagreements, scuffles, they happen. They absolutely happen with teams in locker rooms and at practice, without question.
I don't think in basketball this kind of thing, even with the injury, I don't think actual punches being thrown happens often in basketball.
Yeah, listen, I don't know the answer.
I think it happens often in football.
I don't. Yeah, people jump in quick, though. People really jump because you could kind of see it brewing.
What I'm saying is you would know better than I about football. What I'm saying is I don't think this happens. Do I think that there are disagreements, yelling, shoving even? Maybe. I mean, but there's the legendary story about Michael Jordan punching Steve Kerr, which, the fact is that happened one time and people still talk about it. You know what I'm saying? But he didn't break his face. And finally here, baseball games being significantly longer in the postseason is blank. I can tell you right now, the average 9-inning playoff game this year has been 21 minutes longer than it was 2 seasons ago.
I don't care.
Me neither. I think it's not an issue.
I don't care.
There is no sport that is more different in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. In the regular season, baseball can frequently feel like background noise, like elevator music, like it's just kind of going on and you don't have to pay attention to it. And that's actually one of its values, is that it's just sort of there and you can pay attention when you want. Right. Every pitch of this postseason has been gripping. I'll take more, not less.
That more time doesn't matter to me when I'm interested in the games like I am.
All right, that's fill in the blank. Charles Barkley's on the way in our next hour. Stay there. Mike and Mike.